In the span of about 50 years, the most powerful civilizations on Earth collapsed. Not slowly, not over centuries, almost overnight. The Hittite Empire, one of the great superpowers of the ancient world, vanished from the map entirely. Mycenaean Greece, the world of Agamemnon and the Trojan War, burned to the ground. City after city across the eastern Mediterranean was destroyed, abandoned, and never rebuilt. Even Egypt, the mightiest power of the age, barely survived and was never the same again. For decades, historians searched for one single cause. What they found instead was a name that appears in ancient inscriptions, carved in stone, describing an enemy unlike anything the Bronze Age world had ever faced. The Egyptians called them the Sea Peoples. We don't know where they came from. We don't know their language, their homeland, or their true name. We only know they arrived by the thousands, by ship and by land. And in their wake, an entire era of human history came to an end. So who were they? And how did a civilization that built pyramids, invented writing, and ruled for 1,000 years nearly fall to an enemy history barely remembers? Before the collapse, the Eastern Mediterranean was the most interconnected the ancient world had ever been. Egypt traded gold for Cypriot copper. Hittite kings exchanged letters with Babylonian rulers as equals. Mycenaean palaces on mainland Greece controlled vast trade networks stretching from Italy to the Levant. This was a world of writing, diplomacy, and staggering wealth. Cities like Ugarit on the Syrian coast were thriving international hubs, home to merchants speaking half a dozen languages, warehouses full of imported goods, and royal archives recording treaties between empires. Then, within a single generation, it was gone. Ugarit was burned and never resettled. Its final tablets, still baking in a kiln when the city fell, describe enemy ships approaching the coast, and were never delivered. The great Hittite capital of Hattusa was abandoned and destroyed. Mycenaean palaces across Greece were torched, one after another. In a wave of destruction archaeologists can trace almost city by city. Trade routes that had connected the ancient world for centuries simply stopped. Writing itself disappeared in some regions for hundreds of years. This wasn't a single war. It was a systems collapse, and something or someone was moving through the region, leaving devastation behind. Egypt almost joined the list of the fallen. Around 1177 BC, Pharaoh Ramesses III faced an invasion unlike anything Egypt had recorded before. According to Egyptian inscriptions, this wasn't a single army. It was a coalition. Entire families, moving by land in ox carts loaded with women and children, alongside a massive naval force approaching from the sea. This wasn't just a raid. It looked like a migration crashing violently into the world's last remaining superpower. Our best evidence comes from the walls of Medinet Habu, a mortuary temple Ramesses built to commemorate his victory. The carvings are extraordinarily detailed. Egyptian ships trapping enemy vessels in the Nile Delta, archers raining arrows down from above, warriors with strange feathered headdresses and horned helmets locked in combat. The accompanying text names several distinct groups traveling together: the Peliset, the Cheker, the Shekelesh, the Danaean, and others, collectively remembered as the Sea Peoples. Ramesses claimed total victory. Egypt survived. But it survived wounded. The empire never fully recovered its former power, and within a few generations, the new kingdom itself began to decline. The carvings at Medinet Habu remain our single richest source of information, and they raise more questions than they answer. For over a century, historians and archaeologists have debated where the Sea Peoples actually came from. Three major theories dominate the discussion. The first points to the Aegean. Some historians connect the Sea Peoples to the collapse of Mycenaean Greece and possibly Troy itself, displaced warriors and refugees from a civilization already tearing itself apart, pushed into a desperate migration south and east. The second theory focuses on one group by name, the Peliset. Many scholars believe they are the same people who would later settle on the coast of Canaan and become known in the Bible as the Philistines. Archaeological evidence from sites like Ashkelon shows a sudden shift in pottery style and culture right around this time, matching an Aegean-influenced population arriving on the shore. The third theory looks beyond human conflict entirely. Climate data from this period shows a severe, extended drought across the eastern Mediterranean. Crops failed. Cities that depended on trade for grain lost their supply chains. Some researchers argue the Sea Peoples weren't invaders in the traditional sense at all. They were climate refugees, an entire region of displaced populations set in motion by famine, absorbing or destroying whatever stood in their path. The most likely answer may be a combination of all three. Not one army, but many groups, displaced by drought, war, and the collapse of trade, colliding into the remaining powers of the Bronze Age at the exact same moment in history. Here's the problem archaeologists still can't solve. The Sea Peoples left no writing of their own. Everything we know about them comes from the people they attacked, primarily Egyptian sources, which had every reason to exaggerate their own victories and dehumanize their enemies. We have no capital city to excavate, no royal archive, no first-person account from their side of the story. We can't even agree on how many distinct groups the term actually describes, or whether they saw themselves as one coalition at all. And after their defeat in Egypt, the trail goes cold. Some groups seem to have settled along the Levantine coast. Others simply disappear from the historical record entirely. We know the names the Egyptians gave them. We don't know what they called themselves. The Bronze Age collapse remains one of the most important turning points in ancient history, and one of the least understood. A network of civilizations that had thrived for centuries, connected by trade, diplomacy, and shared culture, came apart in the span of a single human lifetime. It's worth asking what that says about civilizations in general, including our own. How fragile is a system of trade routes, food supply, and political alliances when it's tested all at once by war, climate, and mass migration? The Sea Peoples may be 3,000 years in the past, but the questions they leave behind feel uncomfortably familiar. If you found this one as unsettling as we did, let us know your theory in the comments, and hit subscribe, because next time on Unsolved Files, we're opening a case that might be even harder to close.